Friends, we know that the world does not always look the way we know God would have it to look. And from that, we receive our calling to go into the world and to share our gifts until God's peace and justice is known far and wide. Here to share with us our call to generosity today is Elder Karen Worley.
So the generosity speakers are supposed to tell a story about themselves, and this Advent theme is about courage. And I live a pretty safe life, and so I haven't needed a lot of courage, and I thought, what the heck am I going to say? So I want to talk just about doing things that are outside your comfort zone. And that might not really be courage, but that's the best I got. So the first 15 years I went to this church, we came every Sunday, we went to Sunday school, and I sang in the choir, but I didn't participate in the committee structure. And Gaither Keener came into my office at Lowe's one day and recruited me to be on the admin committee. And I thought, well, that's fine. I go to financial meetings all the time in my job, and so that was completely in my comfort zone. And so I said, okay. And I didn't really know how the church operated, but I came and I sat in the meetings and I listened and I learned. But when I retired and I had more time in my life, I wanted to do something to help people. And I didn't know what or how, and so I thought, well, I'll join the Mission and Outreach Committee, and I'll learn how to participate in what the church is doing and to help people. And I got a chance to be on the Peace and Justice Task Force for the Presbyterian, and so I did that, and I just sat in the meetings and I listened. And then after a couple years, they called me up and asked me to be the chair of it. And I went, oh my gosh. I didn't have any connections in the Presbyterian. I didn't have any experience in all that Matthew 25 stuff about racism and poverty. I'm a numbers guy. And I said, well, I'll think about it and I'll call you back. And I thought about it and I realized they probably just couldn't get anybody else. And then I thought, well, somebody has to do it, and if something's going to get done, there has to be somebody, and it seemed like the right thing to do, and so I called her back and said I would. And then what happened, this church started right that same, like within a month, this church started that Peace and Justice book club, where we read books about poverty and racism and the stuff that I needed to know for the Presbytery. And Donna started the Earth Care group, and we went to Zoom climate change conferences, and I learned about the things that we needed to discuss in the Presbytery about Earth Care teams, and so I guess it kind of worked out. I have been able to contribute, and I do know how to run meetings, and so I did something that was out of my comfort zone, and it's more or less seems to have worked out. So that's my story. And speaking of doing things that are outside of your comfort zone, I hate to ask people for money. It's really awkward, but it's my job to talk about stewardship. And I'm the budget guy. And everybody has heard that this church has all this fund money that we've been able to use that's from trusts that people gave years ago. And I want you to know that a lot of that is restricted to only being spent for mission, and we're about to max out on the part that is not restricted to be spent for mission. So in a world of inflation, if we want to give our staff a raise because there's inflation, we need to get more money into the budget. So if you're on a fixed income and you're already given as much as you can, close your ears, I'm not talking to you. And if you are already giving sacrificially to our capital campaign in addition to your regular pledge giving, and that's all you can do, close your ears, I'm not talking to you. But if you're like me and your income is fixed, but your investments aren't, or if you have a good job and you keep getting regular raises and you think maybe you could do a little more, please consider turning in a pledge next week The little white church is going to be up here somewhere. I don't know quite with the choir going on, but there's going to be the little white church with the little slot where we can put money. We can also put in our pledge cards. And please consider turning in a pledge next week and pledging something more than what, just a little bit more than what you've been giving. Now, everybody who closed your ears, open them up, because this is for everybody. Also, please consider in this time of giving the fact that the committees of this church are where things happen and what things get done. And if somebody needs to be there to do it, or it won't get done. And the way that we as a church operate to be welcoming and growing and serving and loving is through the things that are planned through these committees. So I encourage you to consider, if you're not, or if you're in one, then fine. But if you're not already in a committee, I encourage you to consider being in one for next year. Thank you.